This is the Your Career Story podcast, and you're listening to episode 23, How to Find a Job Across the Country. Welcome to Your Career Story podcast, a show that's designed for rockstar professionals looking for that extra booster shot of confidence in their careers. Whether you're trying to get clarity on a job transition, want some work-life balance inspiration, or need a strategy to snag that promotion or raise, this podcast is for you. I'm your host, Jenna Viviano, ex-Wall Streeter turned startup junkie who now coaches hundreds of clients, empowering them to take back control of the job search and land their dream job. So sit back, grab a glass of wine, and prepare yourself for your weekly boost of career confidence. Welcome back, friends. In today's episode, we're going to debunk all of the objections that you have. And I know you have a lot because I get them on Instagram, I get them on LinkedIn, I get them through email, various sources that you guys have a lot of objections around how to find a job across the country. But I'm here today to tell you that I actually think that it's easier to find a job far away than in your own city. Yes, friend, I said easier. Now, while I haven't personally had to do this for a corporate position, I've had lots of corporate positions, but I was in New York City when I found all of those. I do have countless stories of clients, people who've worked with me one-on-one, who have been able to make massive pivots in their careers while trying to move across the country. So they did two things. They had a massive career change and they moved across the country. If they can do it, you can do it. And I'm going to share a couple of those examples of people that have done it in the past, clients of mine. But before we dive into those stories that I know you are dying to hear, let's talk about some of the objections that they threw at me and probably the objections that you are thinking in your head. Here are some of the objections that you may be thinking it's keeping you from actually moving figuratively and literally towards your dream job. So do any of these sound familiar to you? I won't get through the system if I put my current city on my resume. Well, I don't know anyone in the new city. No one's going to hire me. This interview process is so complicated. If I'm not physically there, I just won't do it. Maybe I should just wait until I move there, and maybe I should just move without a job. I am so overwhelmed at the thought, perhaps I'll just stay put. Now, before we launch into each one of these, I want to take a beat to discuss moving. It's kind of a little bit of a tangent, but it's something that I personally have experienced in my own walk, in my career, and in my personal life, and it's probably something that you're experiencing as well. So take it from someone who has moved halfway across the country from New York City to Nashville. I can promise you that if you are ready to leave a place and you have one foot out the door, you absolutely need to go. There's this quote that I love by a woman by the name of Jill Briscoe, and she goes, "Go where you're sent, stay where you're put, unpack, and give what you've got till you're done." Don't you just love that quote? It personally gives me all kinds of goosebumps. It transports me straight back to when I lived in New York City. Because I know what it was like. I hated living in New York City. For the majority of my time living there, I did not want to be in New York City. So I know that it's easy to just want to scratch that itch of moving and to talk about it all the time, but we have to remember that it is so important to give what we've got in the places, in the jobs, and in the activities until we're done. I actually had a manager when I worked at the New York Stock Exchange and was making a transition, and I told him that's what I was doing. He said, "Don't give me a reason not to give you a good review at your end. The end of your time there." And what he was trying to say there was make sure that you finish strong, finish well, and don't give somebody a reason not to trust you or to want to be around you. And I have to be honest with you, I did not do a really good job of this when I was leaving New York City. I had kind of one foot out the door as soon as I landed in New York City. I was telling people all the time I hated living there, which can be really, really frustrating for people around you. And just like this negative air around you if you are constantly feeling like you should be moving and you're not doing anything truly about it. Now, there were reasons why I think that God kept me in New York City for as long as he did, and I'm super grateful for that experience and the people that I got to meet while I was there and the opportunities that I have. But I also recognize that I was not a good steward of that time. So if you are somebody who feels like you need to move and you haven't done it yet, take it just a second. Take a couple of days to think about, like, why haven't I moved yet? Is it fear that's holding me back? Is it just this job stuff that's holding me back? Or is it that I'm actually not supposed to move and I just need to stay planted for a little bit longer? The worst thing that you can do is to have one foot in and one foot out. It's really frustrating for your friends, for your personal life. It's going to show up in your job and it's going to make you feel stressed out. I know for myself, I was constantly in this tension point of never feeling settled and always wanting to leave. And that was really, really frustrating for people that were around me. So Anyways, I firmly believe that there is a power in the place that you live in. There's power in being planted where you are. And so if you are thinking about taking a move and moving across the country, you need to start taking action today because it's only hurting your progress in your life. Okay, I'm going to get off of my soapbox on the specific subject, but I find it to just be really, really important. It's something that I experienced in my own life. It created some friction in my friendships. I don't want that to happen for you. So just to recap, if you are thinking about making a move across the country and you know it's time to pack up and try on a new adventure, and you've been living with one foot out the door like I was, and the only thing that's holding you back is the logistics of your job, we are about to dive into the nitty-gritty details that I know you're super excited about how to move across the country. I'll be walking you through myths that you're believing and not only why they are flat out wrong, but I'm going to teach you all the workarounds to each one of them. Are you ready to get started? Okay, let's go. Myth number 1, a company won't accept me if I put my current city on my resume. While there's definitely some companies that have this policy, more and more companies I'm seeing are interested in finding the right candidates for the job. More and more companies are interested in hiring remote workers, and more organizations are willing to move the best person for the job. Remote work is on the rise, and more companies are realizing in order to get the best people in their door, they have to have that optionality. So if you're thinking about making a move across the country, there has never been a better time to do that than the present day. So let me tell you about a couple of statistics that I found when I was doing some research for this specific podcast episode. I often read recruiting blogs to figure out what the quote unquote other side is thinking about. I'll read talent acquisition blogs. I'll understand what HR departments are thinking about or concerned about and what tools that they're using. But here's some statistics that I found were really, really interesting. Here's a couple ones. One of them says 45% of employers globally report they can't find the skills they need to fill open jobs. 67% of large companies and 56% of medium-sized companies are having talent shortage issues. 76% of hiring managers find that their top challenge is attracting quality candidates. Top challenge. Here's my personal opinion. I've been in this for a while now. I've been doing it for 4 years. And I was in talent acquisition, essentially helping to sell tools to talent acquisition teams. I really don't think that these talent acquisition teams have a talent problem. That's what they think that the problem is. The problem is that none of y'all that are listening here that are candidates know how to sell yourselves. So that's what I actually think that the problem is that we're not equipping our candidates to actually talk to their story, tell their story in a compelling way that's going to fit in with the right company for the right time. So I really, really do not believe that there's a talent shortage. I believe it's a selling issue that candidates have a problem with. It's a marketing problem, not a skills problem. And what it also tells me is that if you're able to present yourself as the right person for the job, companies will bend over backwards to get you in the door. If they think that they're having a talent problem, even if you don't live inside the same city or even in the same country, if they believe that you're the right person for the job, they are going to do everything in their power to make sure that you can come work for them. If you're in a situation where you haven't moved yet, but you're planning to make a move, I'm going to suggest you do 2 different things. I want you to update your resume with your future city. And 2, I want you to write a cover letter. Now, hear me out. I am not telling you to lie in your resume. The worst thing that you can do is say that you live in a place that you do not yet live. So I've seen this happen before. Someone says that they live in New York City, but they actually live in Birmingham. They're planning to move, but they don't make that differentiation and it just turns into a disaster and you get blacklisted. You absolutely do not want to do that. But what you can do to kind of do a little bit of a workaround is have 2 different locations, current location, future location on your resume. So it shows and signifies to the person reading your resume that, hey, this person was in this place. They're planning to move here. I still want to have a conversation with them. At the end of the day, if they see you live in a different place and they're a big enough organization, especially if they're a big enough organization, they're going to bring you in because of the content that's on your resume, not because of your location. So I think that's a limiting belief that holds people back from the process of actually applying to jobs and worried about finding a job in a new city. That's never really officially the reason if you have the right skills. They're at least going to want to have a phone conversation with you if you feel like you are the right person for the job. So either your resume isn't doing what it's supposed to, but it's usually not just the city issue. If you're worried about the city being the issue, put the 2 different options on your resume. So that's the first things first. Second thing is to write a cover letter. Now, I know a lot of you have a lot of different opinions about cover letters, and you may hate that I told you to write a cover letter, but here's my perspective on those. They are a pain in the butt to write. Abso-freaking-lutely. However, if the job matters to you, the cover letter should absolutely matter to you as well, especially for if you're a career changer or if you're moving across the country. What a cover letter does is it helps give a 3D perspective to what is the 2D that's on your resume. So it helps give you the opportunity to tell a little bit more of your career story. No pun intended with the title of this podcast, but it gives you the opportunity to tell your career story. Who are you? What are you about? Why do you want to move there? Why this company specifically? And what value can you bring to the table? That is what a cover letter is for. It's not for you just to regurgitate a bunch of accomplishments. It's purely allowing you the space to actually write about why you want to work for this organization and how you're going to step in and create value for them. It's never really about you. It's always about them. So the cover letter is a perfect place for you to explain very briefly as to what your plans are, your move. Don't get into too many nitty-gritty details. I don't want to know if your aunt, your mother, whoever is helping you move. I don't care if your husband's getting a job. You just have to get a little bit of context, just enough information to help them understand that you're planning to make a move in XYZ timeframe and that you really would like to work for this organization if given the chance and the opportunity. So hopefully that's been really helpful. Just to recap on that lie that they will not accept me if I put my current city on my resume. Here's the thing. Companies are craving good talent. That is absolute gold for them. If you are the right person for the job and if you're convincing them that you're the person for the job, they don't care where you're from. They'll bring you in if they need to. They'll let you work remotely for a short period of time. I have one of my dearest friends and she, her company that she used to work for, she left them in New York City, went to move to DC, and she was working for another organization. They reached back out to her and they said, hey, would you be interested in coming back to work for us? And she said, well, I'm in DC and my lease isn't up until September, which was like a 6-month time gap between when they asked her and they said, we loved having you here. We'll let you have that 6-month gap of working remotely. And then when that time comes, you'll move back up to New York City. And so what that just proves to me is that companies love good people and they will do everything that they can to keep the right people in the job. So do not let that hold you back from applying online or applying for jobs that are across from the country. Absolutely not. So that's the first thing. Companies are craving good talent. Blow them away with your application. Number 2, do not lie on your resume. That's kind of pretty simple. And 3, write a cover letter. Make sure that you unpack that for an employer so they can understand why you are making the move. So that is the first myth. Moving right along to the second myth. I don't know anyone in the new city. No one's going to hire me. So I get this question and objection all the time. I don't know anyone in a new city. Newsflash. Most people I talk to barely know people in their own industry, in their own city, and you are probably sitting there and you might be one of those people. When was the last time you actually networked in your own city? If you're like the majority of people I talk to, it's probably been a hot minute. And that's okay. I'm not trying to play the shame game or the blame game. But the reality is that is an excuse. It's not reality. I actually think it's so much easier to network with people in new cities than it is to network in your own city, especially if you're trying to find a job at a new organization. Finding friends and coworkers and fellow industry professionals is absolutely no different. In fact, it's easier to network with those individuals when you are far away. So let me tell you about my friend Alan. Alan was a client of mine, and he came to me, this is probably 2 years ago, I think, and he reached out to me. He had been following me for a little bit on LinkedIn, and he said, I'm trying to make this really big move. I'm trying to move from South Carolina, which where I've lived my whole life, and I'm trying to move to Montana. I was like, okay, I am a huge person who is very, very supportive of people. And I am always going to tell you can do it before you can't do it. But I definitely had some hesitations where I was like moving from South Carolina, where you've known people your whole life, kind of making a little bit of a career pivot and moving into a city that is definitely a lot smaller. He wanted to move to Bozeman, Montana. Him and his wife had craved living out in the mountains and wanted to get out of the southern heat. And so I was like, okay, I'll take you on as a client, but I'm being fully transparent. I don't know if this is going to work in the time frame that you want it to work in. And so basically what he did was we started working together. And the biggest thing that he got out of our conversations was the networking piece. And so because he was moving from South Carolina to Bozeman, Montana and knew no one there, we hardcore doubled down on the networking aspect of things. And the thing that he did really, really well is he was okay with being told no. He had a sales background, so he was kind of used to rejection, which a lot of you may not be as used to. That's why networking feels really scary. But the worst thing that can really happen is someone telling you no, or they just don't respond, which is most of the time what happens. So Alan was very, very diligent. He did everything I told him to do. He would reach out to people 3 to 4 times a week. He would find people at specific companies he was interested in. And what he would do that would help him get in the door, and this is something I encouraged him to do, is he would find companies he was interested in working for, find the people that worked for him on LinkedIn, which I talk about in my courses that I go over in my one-on-one coaching. But he was finding those individuals and reaching out to them on LinkedIn and saying, hey, I'm moving to the Bozeman, Montana area in XYZ, probably in the next 6 to 12 months. Do you have any suggestions for where to live and what types of foods to eat? Now that makes to you sound like that's a little weird because he's trying to do professional networking, but at the same time, people hire whole people, right? So people hire whole people. So asking somebody a question in a different city of like, hey, what do you recommend? Because you genuinely want to know, helps start a conversation that feels awkward to begin with. Instead of him going in and saying, which he tried to do before, is saying, hey, here's my resume. I think I want to work for your company. What do you think? That's what a lot of people do when they think of networking. Networking isn't that. Networking is simply mutually beneficial professional relationships developed over time. And so what he was doing is he was like, okay, this guy probably knows a thing or two. He's been in this city for a long time. Let me just ask him and see if I can start up a conversation that way. So it was with his dream company to work for. And he reached out to this guy and he was kind of having that conversation about the different places. And he said, by the way, I noticed that I noticed you guys aren't hiring right now because they weren't. He's like, but I'm looking for a job. So if you know anybody in the area that's interested in hiring, let me know. And the guy said, I don't know anyone right now, but I will keep you in mind. So fast forward, Alan got a job actually at a different company by the same kind of, he was networking and all that kind of stuff. So he got a job at a different organization. And then kind of right before he was about to move, this organization, his dream job, reached back out to him and said, hey, actually, we really want to hire you. Here's what we're going to offer you, which was an awesome gig. And so he let that other company decide, hey, I don't want to work for them anymore. I'm going to work for this dream company. And it was all because of networking and because of him just showing up as a whole person. He actually texted me a couple weeks ago and he's been using these same principles and helping his company grow now. And he's gotten in touch with like somebody from that food channel, which is relevant in his industry and his line of work. But he's been using these tactics not just to help him change jobs, but to help him grow in his industry. And this is with networking with somebody who lives in California and he now lives in Montana. So all that to say, the moral of this story is that networking actually works. And if you are moving far across the country, you can ask a simple question like, hey, I'm moving to this area. Do you have any recommendations? That really helps open the door, open the conversation, and people are willing to help other people who are making big moves. It just is a lot easier to have that conversation than if you were to be in the same city and you're like, hey, I'm looking to have this job. I see you work for this company I want to work for. It's just a little bit harder to sell and it feels a little bit more abrasive than somebody starting off, hey, I'm just looking to make connections. I'm on LinkedIn. I'm trying to find a job, but I'm also really curious, like, what do you recommend I do in this new city that I'm planning to live in? So anyways, all that to say, I think that's super important to build out your network. And if you're moving across the country, you actually have a beneficial advantage. So if you guys are interested in learning more about how to connect with real people on LinkedIn specifically, I want you to snag the networking templates that Alan used. You're going to get it on my wait list for my LinkedIn course called LinkedIn Workshop, Build Your Personal Brand and Grow Your Income Potential. This course is going to be so important to your cross-country travelers. So you can check it out over here at jennaviviano.com/LinkedIn. So if you're looking to have a bigger understanding about how to use LinkedIn to network, especially if you are a person that's going to move across the country, you want to get on the wait list for the LinkedIn course called LinkedIn Workshop, Build Your Personal Brand and Grow Your Income Potential. You can find that over at jennaviviano.com/LinkedIn. We'll have that in the show notes. Here's another thing if you're moving across the country. If you have the opportunity to do so, spend some time in your new location. And I'm not sure how much time Alan got, but I know when I was moving from New York to Nashville, I made sure that I made this a priority. I created a trip where I was going to be there for about a week. I stayed with a friend when I came to Nashville, and I wanted to get to know the churches and then wanted to meet some new people. And so before I actually set foot in Nashville, I went onto LinkedIn and I searched for people at different colleges in the area because at the time I was thinking maybe I was going to help new grads specifically with their job search process. So best place to start in the Career Services Center at these universities that were located in the Nashville area. And I reached out to somebody at Vanderbilt. She was in the law department. It was law department career services, a little bit different than what I was used to, but I had a mutual interest. We had mutual things. And so I reached out to her and said, hey, you don't know me, but I'm going to be moving to the Nashville area. I'm just trying to make friends. And you were both in the similar industry. Do you have like a 30-minute block that we can grab coffee when I'm in town next week? Girlfriend and I met up. We became friendly. Now we haven't stayed in touch long term, but that was just an opportunity to make more and more of those connections over time. So I would just recommend if you have an opportunity to meet some folks in person, that's another way to get over this myth, get over this objection, because that does not have to hold you back from moving across the country. Hey y'all, I wanted to pop in here for a couple of quick announcements. One, we are so grateful that you are a part of this community. You have been cheering us on, pointing to which episodes have been most impactful for you, and sharing with your friends. Please keep doing that. We're so encouraged by it. If you've been around for a while, we would be honored if you gave us a review on iTunes. By you giving a review, you're helping other people find this weekly career advice goodness. I firmly believe, and I know you do too, that if more people showed up loving their work, it would be a better world to live in. So please head on over to iTunes and give us a quick review. It should only take about 10 seconds. Now, if this is your first time joining us, welcome. We are so glad to have you be a part of the family. We firmly believe in bringing the human back into human resources over here at the Your Career Story podcast. So if you would like to put a face to the name, I would love to meet you. Feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn. Just search for my name, Jenna Viviano, and that is Jenna with one N. Or you can find me on Instagram at Jenna_Viviano. Again, that's Jenna with one N. And message me telling me what you've been listening to on the podcast. If you do that, I'll send you a freebie to kick your career into high gear. So just to recap, if you've been a listener for a while, give us a review on iTunes. And if you're new, let's just get connected on LinkedIn or Instagram. Oh, and make sure you hit subscribe. All right, friends, back to the episode. All right, myth number 3. It'll just make interviewing complicated if I'm not physically there, so maybe I should just wait until I'm physically there. Totally understand the frustration here. And yes, that may be true that the interview is 100% in person and you know that you're going to be having to travel a lot. It does make it a little bit more difficult. The thing is though, same way that more companies are going remote with workers, they also are doing initial phone screens more often versus having you come in person. They're doing video interviews. I actually worked for I had an interview with WeWork, which some of you know about way back. And we were in the same city as the person and they still did a video interview. So I would not let that hold you back because more and more organizations are adding the video interview component until you get to kind of that last stage where you can actually come in and meet the individuals. And by that time, you probably are getting really close to making the move. So those remote options are definitely possible. And it should not hold you back from actually making that move. So what if they don't pay for you to fly there? I get this question a lot. So people will say to me, Jenna, I really want to interview with this company, but they're not going to pay for me to fly there. How do I actually expense this? Is it even worth it for me to work for that organization? There's a couple of things that I would think about. See if you can batch some interviews. That's the first thing. So let's say you're applying to a bunch of different companies in the area. I would just request, and this is totally normal if you're flying across the country, is to say, hey, I am looking to batch some interviews. I'm coming in for this week. Could we meet during this time frame? A lot of companies will be, if they can, will be flexible with that and will make it so that it becomes more worth it for you instead of you going out like one week and then like 3 weeks later you go out for another interview. That just can be really frustrating and can be really pricey if their company is not paying for it. But if you can batch it together, just look at it as an investment for your career. I think too many of us don't look at those opportunities as investments in our career. Sure, it's not a sure thing, but so many things in our life are not sure things. Sometimes you got to go out on a limb to figure out if it's going to work for you. So that's the first thing. Number 2, if you know somebody in the city, stay with a friend. I did that. It made the process a lot easier. It made it cheaper. It was so much more enjoyable. I got to see the city in a new light by staying with a friend of mine. So that was another way to kind of keep those costs down. Number 3, set up those coffee dates. So that makes it also more worth it, where you can look at all of those experiences as making that trip and that expense worth it. I had a gentleman reach out to me. He was in town for a conference and he's in the faith and work space. And I could tell that he was making the most of his trip. So he was coming kind of for work-related things. He wanted to meet people at the conference for his work. And it was going to probably be, beneficial for him and his business. But ultimately, he was packing even the time outside of the conference, meeting up with people, having those coffee dates. And he realized the value of creating network, which is actually more valuable than like a salary or a paycheck. And so when you kind of switch the perspective that you may have around networking and switch the perspective that you may have around setting up coffee dates, make it worth for yourself to actually make that flight out there to whether it's a different city because you're going out for an interview or not. Even if you don't have an interview lined up and you maybe only have one, you could maybe create some other coffee dates that are going to make that much more beneficial that you can continue that networking experience. And number 4, see if your current company will pay for it. You're probably thinking to yourself, what the heck, Jenna, are you talking about? How is a current company going to pay for my future opportunity? I have seen this happen more times than not. I had a client recently who did this, where she would have to travel. She lived in London, was having to travel to New York for every once in a while for work-related things. And the company that she was applying for was based, the home base would be in New York City. And so she kind of told her company, hey, I think I'm going to go on a work trip. I'm going to go back into, I need to meet these XYZ people. And she made it work for her. And that current company actually paid for her to go and interview with that future company without even realizing it. So that may feel a little sleazy to you, but if it makes sense with your business and what you're trying to like match it up with, that's also another option. So the 4 options are: see if you can batch interviews, see if you can set up coffee dates, see if you can stay with a friend, and see if your current company will pay for it. While it may complicate some things, the interview process, that is 100%, as I said before, not an excuse not to try and find a job across the country. There is always, always a workaround. Now, specifically when it comes to interviewing, make sure that you kill it during every initial stage so that they will be compelled to fly you. That's another way to think about it. It's kind of what we were talking about before. With companies will do whatever they can to get you in the door if they feel like you're the right candidate. So make sure that you are impressing them in those initial phone screens, because that's really going to compel them to bring you in again and bring you in again. And they're going to be like, we really want to have this person in here. We're going to fly them out. We think that they're going to be a really good fit for our organization. Let's do that. That's how you get them to get excited about you, because ultimately, if you can become and bring value for an organization and they can see the ROI of hiring you, they're going to want to fly you in. So that is another way to think about it, is making sure that you are actually doing that work. Now, if you want some tips on how to totally kill an interview, I have a 40-page manual, really beneficial to a lot of folks, that has an interview question answer guide. So going through typical questions that are asked during that and the specific answers that you should answer. So structures to tell me about yourself, or what your strengths and weaknesses, or the questions that you should ask at the end of the interview. So all of that is encompassed in that 40-page manual. If you want to find that, you can go to www.jennaviviano.com/interview guide. And we'll have that in the show notes for you as well. So that's for the interview guide in case you guys have interviews coming up. I highly, highly recommend going through that. That question repository is gold. It's been so helpful for so many of my clients. All right, myth number 4. Maybe I should just wait until I move there and move without a job. Okay, this is the most ridiculous objection that I hear from some people, but some people operate like this. Some people like the thrill of the chase. Some people like being a little bit risky. They think it pushes them overboard. And if that's you, Godspeed. That is just not how I operate. And it's not how most people that I know operate as well. What that often does, if you move to a new city without a new job, it just puts you in a financial pinch most times. Most people don't have a year saved up, or even 6 months saved up. And so it just doesn't give you as much wiggle room to find the right opportunity. What often happens is people will actually just take their next opportunity, which I am not about. I don't want my clients to be about, because here's the deal. If they just find the next opportunity versus the right opportunity, they're going to be back to me in about a year. And I just do not want that. It's never about just switching to switch jobs. It's switching with a purpose. And so oftentimes when you move without a job thinking you're going to hit the ground running, you're going to meet those people because you're physically there, that often doesn't really work out how you plan it to. And so you can actually be doing work right now. So even if you decide, okay, I'm going to move there without a job, but you better be doing work in the forefront before you actually move there to make sure you have tentacles and a foundation and a network already building on the back end of what we've already been talking about through this entire episode. I'm not going to go through all those little tips and tricks about networking, but that is so, so important to make sure that you are, if you move there without a job, just make sure you're doing the work beforehand to get your network built up and to make sure that you're not using that as an excuse. And don't just take a job to take a job. So if you are able to, I would highly recommend finding a job or get super close to finding the job as much as possible before actually moving. It can be really, really, really frustrating. So if you're a hardcore Enneagram 7, you're probably thinking, this sounds like a lot of fun. This is like great fun. But I just do not recommend moving without having a job. It's a little bit too risky. It's not a risk that I recommend. So that is myth number 4. Now, myth number 5, finally, I am so overwhelmed at the thought of moving. Maybe I will just stay put. Now, if you have heard anything in this podcast episode, make sure you hear this. Fear is not an option. Fear is not a friend. So do not stay put because you're scared about the overwhelm and scared about the move. I have a client right now. She is absolutely killer. She does so well in the line of work that she does, but the city that she's living in is just not serving her. I'm a firm believer that your environment matters. I talked about that in a little bit in the beginning of this episode, but if you feel like it's time for you to move, you need to start making moves there, and you cannot let fear hold you back. Yes, there may be some logistical challenges, but you cannot allow that be the reason that you do not move forward in your life and move forward in your career especially. I found for myself that when I moved out of New York City and moved to Nashville, which felt much more my speed, much more my type of people. It was just a better place for me to be. The rest of my life started to thrive. My personal life started to thrive. My professional life started to thrive. I was actually in a rhythm that was healthy for me, but I wouldn't have gotten there if I had just stayed stuck and overwhelmed and fearful about making a move. As much as I hated living in New York, I was really, really scared of starting over in a new city. And I know that feeling so well. So if you're there right now, I totally get it. But that is absolutely not an excuse. It is not really an objection. It's just fear. And I just know that. I know that feeling so well. And I'll give an example of what it looks like when I'm listening to fear and letting it run my life. I feel like I need to be in control. I feel confused. I feel frustrated. It's not actually a pleasant experience because I'm controlling whatever is going on around me. And I'm actually not any more secure by trying to control that. So I am definitely not immune to this feeling of fear. I'm definitely not immune to the feeling anytime when I'm in my career, if I'm trying to make a big pivot in what I'm doing, I'm kind of in one of those seasons right now. I have to get myself out of it because I know it will only keep me stuck. It will not serve me. And so if you're feeling stuck right now in your career and you know that you have to move across the country, please move. Some of the ways that I get myself out of it is I kind of clothe myself with different scripture, Bible references that help me understand and remember who I am, that God is for me, and that my future is already determined. And then I just need to step into that as well. And so another thing that I also do is I identify what the lie is. So if I'm believing that it's just too overwhelming, shouldn't make the move, for instance. It's too overwhelming. No, that's actually a lie. That's fear, because fear isn't truth. And I cover that with the truth. So I say, this is a lie. This is the truth. So you can try that yourself in your own career. What's the lies that you're believing about your career? What's the lies that you're believing about finding a job across the country? And what truths can you put over top of that? The other thing I do is I kind of take an evaluation. I understand my new mantra that I've used in my career is go with the pieces. And so I had made a lot of career decisions that are rooted in peace. And I don't know how to describe it other than the woo-woo, other than not just strategy, not just like tactics and tips, but actually by sitting in it and feeling like which thing feels better. I have said no to opportunities that everyone else would have said yes to. I've had a couple that have happened this year that I've done that with, but I'm a firm believer that if you go where the peace is, you are going to be successful in your career, because if you're not peaceful, you're going to feel like you need to be in control. You're going to be living in fear, and that's just not healthy for yourself or anyone else. So press on, press forward. Don't let fear run your life. Go where the peace is. All right, friends. Now that is my sermon for the day. It is now over. But just to recap, if you're trying to find a job across the country, some things that you need to make sure that you're doing: write a cover letter. Spend time in your new home if you can, that new city. Figure out what the cool places are to meet people. Figure out what the entrepreneurial centers look like. Figure out where professionals like you are meeting up and meeting new individuals. Figure that out. Network with real humans. We oftentimes want to sit behind our computer screens or sit behind our phones. And the reality is, as soon as we get in front of real humans, that's when things and the magic start to happen. Make sure you're interviewing like a boss. Again, we'll have that interview guide in the show notes. Make sure you're planning ahead and that you don't wait until the last minute to actually start building up your network, even if you are going to move across the country without finding a job first, which again, I don't recommend. And then finally, don't let your fear hold you back. Do not let your fear hold you back. All right, guys, I'm going to ask you a question that I ask all of my clients. I want you to hop onto LinkedIn. I want you to connect with me, and I want you to tell me, what was your biggest takeaway from this episode? Was it the networking? Was it the resume examples? Was it the fear piece? Tell me what resonated most with you. I will see you next week, where we're going to be chatting all about my favorite topic besides LinkedIn and networking, which I love also. We're going to be talking about confidence at work. So if you've been feeling lackluster, if you hate talking about yourself and think that humility makes you a better person and that you just don't ever want to talk any highly about yourself, I'm going to be blasting those lies and helping you see yourself as a rockstar professional that you are meant to be. All right, friends, I will see you then. Hey, y'all, thanks so much for listening to Your Career Story podcast. I would love to get to meet you. And there are a couple of ways that we can connect in between episodes. First and foremost, I love my LinkedIn. Second is via Instagram. And third is over on my website. I actually have a special spot just for you full of fun, free resources. So all you have to do is go to www.jennaviviano.com/resources. Super simple, for a bunch of freebies that will help you boost your career. Hope to see you next week.